This is the Little Moments Count radio podcast, created in partnership with community radio stations throughout Minnesota. Each episode, you'll hear interviews with early childhood experts on how to support the important brain development that takes place in the first 1,000 days of life, just through little moments every day. Learn more at littlemomentscount.org/podcast.
Good day to be indigenous.
Get up, stand up.
They are going to become more brutal.
Because all the hippies were trying to be Indians anyway.
They're going to become more repressive because it's a matter of dollars and their illusionary concepts of power.
Hey, Victor.
We must live in balance with the earth.
And also with recent happenings at Wounded Knee.
I am awake. Welcome to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Wakanja Hade. Hey, Kadagita, all my friends and relatives in four directions. You are listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Robert Pilot. Hey, we discuss local, national, Native news and events, and as you know, Native issues are human issues, and human issues are Native issues. Hey, I just want to say Native Roots Radio is always excited to be partnering with Little Moments Count to host a conversation focused on early childhood development. We'll be welcoming monthly guests and talk about how they view the role of early childhood development in creating bright futures and strong communities. Today we have a guest, Liam Mackin, and Liam is a communications and development manager at Reach Out in Reed, Minnesota. I just want to welcome you, Liam. Thanks a lot for spending some time here on Native Roots Radio.
Yeah. Hey, Robert. I'm so glad to be on today. Thanks for having me.
Hey, for listeners who may be hearing about Reach Out in Reed, Minnesota for the first time, what is the organization and what is your mission?
Yeah, so Reach Out and Read is a program that's created by pediatricians who saw this awesome opportunity that they have to make an impact on their young patients' lives. So the original program started back in Boston in the late '80s, and it was started by this group of pediatricians who decided, we're going to try handing out books at all of our well child visits, checkups, ages 0 to 5, and just use that as a launching pad to kind of talk with the parents, connect with them a little bit more deeply, and talk about why things like reading with their child are so important for their development. So here in Minnesota, we've had clinics participating since 1997, and we've grown to over 300 clinics since then. So every well child visit, every checkup, the child is going to come in with their parents, with their caregiver, and their pediatrician, family physician, whoever is their primary healthcare provider is going to start that visit off by the gift of a brand new free book. And we find that is just a wonderful way to start a visit, for one thing, and also a way to spark this broader conversation about, well, how is your child doing? What can you be doing to help their with their brain development, and what's good for their brains at this really important early stage.
Talk about a little bit about the process. So you have books there, and why is it so important? I know for me, when I go to the doctor, the dentist, I jump on one of those magazines, People magazines or whatever they have in there, and start reading, because usually there's a wait.
Well, that's great, Robert. Yes, that's great too. And I imagine that you like to read those magazines because someone probably read to you when you were a young child. And that's really what makes all the difference. Yeah. And so the book is really, books are wonderful. We love them. But they're a tool, right? So they're this, a launching pad for this broader conversation, right? So we use books as a way to be able to as a portal, or as a way to start this conversation, or this bonding experience between the parent and the child. And so what it is it's really important for a child to have what we call language-rich interactions. So essentially that's just kids hearing lots and lots of words, and books are in a fantastic way to make that happen, right? Because they give you the guidance. You have pictures you can look at, you have pictures you can point to, you have all these words that are built in, you have these wonderful stories. And for that child's brain, they're just absorbing all of that information, and they're also being snuggled up with and with their parent and caregiver, and and that's how they know that they are in a safe space, and that they're cared for. And that also is super conducive to their brain development. And so when our pediatricians or family physicians, nurse practitioners are using this program, the book is this great tool to get that conversation started. And then I also use it at the start of the visit often to assess the child's development. So they're going to see, okay, well, how is a child reaching out for the book? Do they know what this is? Do they hold it right side up? How do they respond to questions about the book? And those kinds of things. I'm no pediatrician myself, and so I don't have all of the technical language, but our partners are always telling us that those are the kinds of things that really let them know what's going on in this child's brain. Are there things that we need to be paying a little bit closer attention to? Do we perhaps need to get this child screened for any particular disability, or do we need to, or are we getting the sense that this child might be spending a little bit too much time on the screens? And how can we guide those parents in a conversation that really feels mutually respectful, and we like to call it coaching. We're in this together, and how can we guide those parents towards these healthy behaviors that we know are so helpful for their child?
Yeah, what I wanted to key in on what you said too. The child's brain, what happens when the caregivers and spend time reading to the children? What happens with their brain? I know you talked a little bit about feeling safe. What else happens?
Yeah. So, as we know, children's brains are incredible things. We still don't even fully have a really clear picture of how they work. Brains are so complex and they're so amazing. And at this young age, they're literally making millions of new neural connections every moment. And that is just something that's really hard for us to even fathom. And what they're doing is they're making these connections that they're going to use for the rest of their lives, right? They're kind of building these pathways in their brains that help them figure out what's going on around them and figure out how they're going to keep learning about the world around them. And so these connections that they make are really, really important. And the way that we talk about it is, I referenced this earlier, is a lot of language-rich interactions. So when a child and their parent or caregiver are just having these interactions between them, that's what really helps the child's brain start to make these connections. We talk about how you've probably heard, people always saying, "Oh, children are little sponges. They're soaking up everything around them," right? And that's true. They're soaking up a lot. But unlike sponges, the children will talk back, right? And that's a really important part. It's not just talking at them. It's not just telling them. It's about the interaction, and that's what's really magical, I think, about reading, is that you can, you're pointing to the pictures on the books and you're saying, what's going on here? What do you think about this? And other activities, just like talking, like, just chatting with your child is an amazing thing to do for their brain. Chatting, singing, kids love to sing. Even if you don't have a great voice, your child doesn't know that yet, you can just sing away and they'll be having a great time.
What I like is Reach Out and Read Minnesota partners with Indian Health Services and tribally affiliated clinics across the state. Why has it been so important to build relationships with Indigenous communities, and what have you learned about that work?
Yeah, so our IHS and tribally affiliated clinics, they're some of our strongest partners in the state, and then also some of our clinics that also serve Native populations as a part of their mission that aren't necessarily affiliated with a specific tribe, such as Indian Health Board or Native American Community Clinic. Both of those are in Minneapolis. They are awesome. Indian Health Board has been, they've been a part of our network since they were one of our first 3 clinics to join our program in the 90s. Cool. And they've just been, I think, one, because we know that unfortunately a lot of the communities that they serve just don't have access to the same level of books, especially some of these clinics located in rural areas. They just don't, frankly, have the same access to these early learning supports as a lot of other communities. And so that's a really important part of our mission, right? We want every child in the state to get our program, but we are prioritizing first those children, those families that may not have access to this information, to these books otherwise. And so, yeah, we're at a number of different reservations across the state, and we're at Leech Lake, Boys Fort, Red Lake, White Earth, Lower Sioux, and like I said, we're also at a number of these clinics that are serving these Native populations as a part of their mission. And I think they've just been, I mean, to speak pretty broadly, they've just been some of our most enthusiastic and helpful partners. And it's just been really exciting to work with them.
Wow, we are here with Liam Mackin, who is the Communication Development Manager at Reach Out and Read, Minnesota. Really some exciting news about brain activity of our young ones. We'll be right back. This is Native Roots Radio. Stay with us. Ho! Welcome back to Native Roots Radio Presents I'm Awake, and this is Robert Pilot. Hey, welcome back, everyone. Hey, this is our version of a Little Moments Count here on Native Roots Radio, and we're here with Liam Mackin, who is the Communication and Development Manager at Reach Out and Read, Minnesota. We were talking about a little bit about some of the nations and the clinics, Native clinics that, all the places that you have books, drop-off books. I'm curious, again, thanks for being on, Liam. I'm curious, tell me what kind of books do you, and age groups and things like that, what kind of groups or kind of books do you send out to these places?
Yeah, so that is a major focus of our work, right? So the book is like I said, is the launch pad to our program. It's how it gets these conversations started, and so we want to make sure that families are taking home books that they that are, one, development appropriate for their child, and two, that they can get really excited about. So there's some of our younger children, those are going to be the books are going to look pretty basic, right? They're going to be those high contrast books that, as children or even babies are starting to develop their eyesight, right? That they can kind of distinguish and have something to look at. And then they get a little bit more and more involved as they go on. We'll have books that, use a lot of, different language and language patterns and they're just kind of geared towards each of the age groups that we work with. So we're working with that 0 to 5 range. So it's pretty young. And we also have books, we want to make sure that, like I said, that families are excited about the books that they're getting and they feel that these books are for them. So we work with books in, well over a dozen, I think close to 24 different languages. We do a lot of books in Spanish, Hmong, Somali, Karen. And then we've also done, we have books that feature Dakota and Ojibwe languages as well, which is really important for our work. I think, especially with those families that go in and just say, oh, this book is representing, this book is written for people like me, right? It's written in a way that celebrates or recognizes my culture, my people, my family. And so we work really hard to make sure that those books are, one, really high quality. We want to make sure that books are, if we're doing a translation of a book, we really want to make sure it's a quality translation, because it's a way of letting the families know that we see them, we accept them and we celebrate them, and we want them to be a part of this beautiful experience of reading together.
Yeah, and it's like I think we talked a little bit off camera or off the radio, is that how important it is for young ones to see themselves when it comes to being a children's book or things like
Absolutely.
that. It's so important. I came from the era of I'm old. I came from the era that every Barbie doll was blonde hair, blue eyed, and so it's great to see that people do understand that it's important for people to be brought up and love who they are by seeing themselves in so many different ways.
Yeah, and absolutely, it's about those. I mean, the representations, just having people that look like them, and then also books about that contain those cultural elements too. So it's not just token representation, right? It's not just putting a face on there and saying, all right, we're diverse. It's about really representing those stories and those different backgrounds more fully as well.
So what kind of stories is it just really kind of all over the map when it comes to what the theme of the stories are?
Oh, totally.
So give an example that you can think of off the top of your head, because when I think about this,
Mhm,
I think about, of course, we're talking about early childhood. I'm thinking about those big graphic books that have
mhm.
beautiful pictures and paragraph story on each page. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it's going to vary definitely by age group, and then also just by what the families and the folks working at the clinics find is are working. So we have a huge range, right? Those early childhood books, they're not going to be as narrative based. I mean, if there is a narrative, it's more for the parents because the child's not going to be a 6 month old child's not going to be following along story. Really, the important thing is that they're just being exposed to the language. I know, like my sister was, when she was reading to my niece when my niece was really little, she would read, fantasy books and whatever books she was reading, just so that my niece would hear that. But those, the early childhood books are going to be, it might be really basic, like first words kinds of things. And then as we move on to a little bit older, yeah, there's going to be a really wide range of narratives. Some we have all kinds of books that we try to instill good messages for the children. Some of the books, like Pete the Cat, they're mostly just fun, and that's a huge part of like getting a child and the parent excited about the book. And of course, they do have good messages as well. And then some books, The Snowy Day is a classic, and it resonates especially well for us up here in the north that get lots of snow and
Yeah.
know what the snow days are like. One of my favorite books, I can't speak to all of our books have this message or this message, but one of my favorite books is Windows by Julia Danos, and it's this awesome. I just think it's a really beautiful book, and it's about this child on an autumn day going out for a walk in his neighborhood and just seeing through the windows. It's this urban setting, and just seeing through the windows all these different families or people, living their lives in the evening. They're having dinner together. They're talking. They're doing all these different kinds of families, and I just feel like that's a really beautiful book of just this is what it's like to be in this world, and this world full of all these different kinds of people. So sometimes the messages are they'll hit you over the head. They'll be pretty direct, and other times it's just sort of these more subtle stories, and it really, again, it's going to be a huge range.
Hey, we are here with Liam Mackin. Reach out and read Minnesota. One of the things I neglected to do in the first segment, and I want to do a couple times, is how people can learn more about Reach Out and Read.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, reachoutandreadmn.org is our website. That's a great place to find all the different resources. You can find us on social media, Reach Out and Read Minnesota on Instagram, Reach Out and Read Minnesota on Facebook, on LinkedIn. And you can, very likely, lots of times, you'll be going to a clinic and maybe you're receiving a book and you might not even know that it's the Reach Out and Read program. So ask your clinician, ask your child's doctor, ask your clinic that you're at, and say, hey, do you all participate in Reach Out and Read? And what's that? What does that look like for you all?
Yeah.
And I think that's a great way to learn more about how it's being implemented in your community, whether you have young children or not.
Excellent. And one of the things, we're winding down here, and I want you to take your time on this question. But if there's one message you hope every parent and caregiver listening today takes away about supporting children during the first 5 years of life, what would it be?
Well, first of all, I would say take a breath. You're doing a good job. If you're listening and caring, you're already on the right track. I think there's so much pressure that's put on parents these days, and they're getting so many conflicting different messages that first of all, just recognize you're doing an awesome job. You're caring, and that's going to be the biggest element. And secondly, I would say keep things simple. Spend time with your child, listen to your child, interact with them, see how they're feeling, and just surround them with language and love. And I think that is going to be the biggest difference maker.
Yeah, definitely. And I know as a Choka, a grandparent again, they're going to be 2 years old in August, and we've been watching
Oh, that's awesome.
the twins. And what's always exciting to see, because my wife and we read to them, of course, the parents do too, uh, is when they come to our house, they grab a book and they hand it to us. and they want
Oh,
us to read with them, whether it's colors or elephants. And my wife's vegan, so she has a lot of animal elements in
oh,
their
sure.
room and in their books. So, but and they come in and sign cow, and
Oh,
yeah, it's beautiful, and they're very smart, and a lot of it has to do with what you're saying is that
mhm.
whatever you focus on, these young ones will really absorb.
Yeah, definitely. And I can tell that those kids, that's a great sign that they come up with the books. That's exactly the kind of behaviors that we're trying to instill in families all across the states. Just to say, get excited about these books and about those little moments that happen between parents, grandparents, caregivers, whoever it is, and that young child.
Yeah, and we're gonna wind up here. We got like a minute left. I really, again, want you to give out the information about reach out and read, and also just a last statement because this is a really beautiful and a really beautiful organization, and I imagine people can donate or find out more information from you too.
Yeah. So again, yeah, you can find us at reachoutandreadmn.org. You can email me if you want to reach out directly to me at liam@reachoutandreadmn.org. And I obviously love to talk about our program, so I'd be thrilled if you emailed me. And yeah, I mean, we have all sorts of initiatives going on across the state, and we would love, the reason we're able to make this happen is that our community steps up to make it happen. Our clinicians are stepping up to say this is something that's important in our community. We want to get these books into the hands of children. We want to have these conversations with parents and caregivers. It happens because we have our funders across the stage. We have it because our donors are stepping up and saying this is just something that's important to us. We're going to make sure that this happens. And so really it's a collective effort, and we invite anyone and everyone to be a part of it in a way that works for them. So
Oh, this is
thank
really
you. So,
great.
yeah.
This was really great, and really things that, and it's always good too, even if we know this information, it's good to hear about it again and reaffirm that people with little ones are doing the right job because we need them to know as many words as possible those first 5 years.
Absolutely, Robert. Thank you so much for having me on. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, right on, Liam. Thank you. We'll have you on again. This was really good. Reach out and read Minnesota with Liam Mackin. Hey, this is Native Roots Radio. Everyone have a great day. And if you're listening to the show, you are part of the resistance. From Chief Plenty Coops, the ground in which we stand on, it's sacred ground. It's the blood of our ancestors. We need to resist, divest, join a group, run for office, vote, and play pickleball. Well, we're still here. We are the seventh generation.
Thanks for listening to the Little Moments Count radio podcast in partnership with community radio stations throughout Minnesota. You can find the Little Moments Count radio podcast wherever you get your podcasts and at littlemomentscount.org/podcast.